So, each and every person has Zechus and Avonos, merit and iniquities, right? That's like the classic translation. Yeah. Mi shezechiyosav yeseros al avonosav tzadik. Someone whose merits are more than his avonos is a tzaddik. Umisha avonosav yeseros al zechiyosav rasha. And someone whose avonos are more than his zechios is a rasha. Yeah.
Okay. I don't get why we need these categories.
Yeah.
Like, just measure the sins and things and apply the appropriate judgment.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me just think for 1 second here. Yeah, you know who asked that question? Your wife. Yeah, 2 years ago or last year, Tamar asked, what's with the binary system? You know? Like, why does it have to be binary? Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know why we have to put people in the categories. Like,
yeah, that's part of the question here. Mechazeh lemechazeh Benoni, and if you're half and half, then you're a Benoni. Okay. V'chein haMedina, same thing with the country, the province, whatever you want to call it. Im hayu zechios kol yoshveha merubos al avonosehem harizet zo tzedekes. So if their zechios are more, the zechios of the inhabitants are more than their avonos, then it is righteous. V'im hayu avonosehem merubin harizo risha. And if the avonos are more, then it is wicked. V'chein kol ha'olam kulo. I guess he doesn't need to spell that one out, right? Okay. Adam she'avonosav merubin al zechiosav miyad hu mes berisho. So if a person's avonos are more than their zechios, immediately he dies in his rishos. Shneamar al rov avonech, as it says on your abundant, I think is the best translation here, right? Because we were talking about merubin, abundant avon. V'chein haMedina she'avonosav merubin miyad hi obedes. Same thing with the Medina. If its avonos are more, then immediately it is destroyed. Shneamar, as it says, Zaka Sodom va'Amorah ki rabah. The outcry of Sodom and Amorah is great. V'chein kol ha'olam. If its avonos are more, then immediately it's destroyed. Shneimar v'yar Hashem ki rabba ras Adam. Yeah.
Why does he use this lashon miyad?
Yes. So
it's not true. People get sick and
right. Okay. So first of all, the whole miyad hu mes berisho. I mean, you could say that anyone who dies, like, or at least a subset of anyone who dies, it was because at that moment they became a rasha and they died. You know, it's just. It stretches credulity. Yeah. But then the real problem is like the example that he gives of Zaka Sodom va'Amorah ki rabah. So like it wasn't immediate, right? Avram got informed, and then like there was the Malachim trying to go get like Lot out. That took some time. So you could say maybe that still qualifies as immediate, but the Mabul was not immediate. That was 120 years. So like you lose the sense of immediate, you know, when you actually like look, especially with the Mabul example. And once you got the Mabul example and that's not immediate, so then like what's with the rest of it?
What does Zaka mean?
The out. I mean,
the cry.
Yeah, the cry. I don't know. I think they say that was the cry of the victims, right? Because they weren't davening, right? Sodom wasn't like, you know, yeah. Yeah. Oh, we might as well ask all the questions as we go, right? So, like, the question for me that opened up the whole area was, yesh lo zechios v'avonos. I mean, so the question obviously is what is the zechios and avonos, but what's the yesh? What does it mean they have them? You know, like, does it mean like in the divine grade book, like, you know? In what yesh means that there's some relation between them and the people. So and if you're going to say like for the individual, so like what about for the Medina and the world? Like
you could say like kol adam asa devarim she'married good things or bad things.
Right, but see the thing is like if you're talking about their actions, that I would understand. Like if you said a person has done many mitzvos and many averos, that I understand. But they have the zechuyos and avonos. Right. Where, how, what, you know. Okay, so then.
Also, you could have said every person is deserving of either reward or punishment.
Right. Yeah. So we have that question, then we have the question about the binary, why does it have to be these two categories? And then also the Benoni is just weird, right? Like, does that mean literally mechata lemechata, like exactly half? Because it sounds like it, because if it's Yaseros in one direction or the other, then you're Tzaddik or Russia. And it's just a weird definition. Even if you're going to take for granted that you have the two categories, it's a weird definition, or it's a weird system where, like, one thing can make the difference.
Especially later in the Pharak when he, like, takes the two things off. And
Yeah.
Then, like, maybe you're Benoni, but if he puts, like, then it sounds like each sin is like a granular thing, and Benoni is exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, why do you even have that category of the exactly half and half? Okay. So then he says in Daled, V'shikol ze eno, or in my Daled, V'shikol ze eno lefi minyan as zechus v'avonos. So this weighing of them to determine like more or less is not according to the number, elo lefi godlan, but according to the magnitude or the size. Yesh zechus shehi keneged kama avonos. There could be a zechus which corresponds to many avonos. Shnemar, as it says, Yan nimsa bo davar tov. So that is about one of the evil kings. Let me see who it is. Oh wait, I didn't see. What pasuk is it? Yud-Gimel, yeah. So this is about. V'at kumi lech b'levesech v'saftu lo kol Yisrael v'kavru oso ki ze levado yavo leRavim el kever. Also, it was one of Yeravim ben Nevat's descendants, one of his kids, I think. So only one of them got buried. Yan nimsa bo davar tov, because there's something good was found in him. El Hashem el Yisrael b'ves Yeravim. So it was like I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, remove the guards.
Yes. Prevented them going to the base of Mikdash? Yeah, right. So he was wicked other than that, but like that one thing like was a zechus for him. Yeah. V'yesh Avon shu keneged kama zechuyos. There could also be one Avon that is keneged many zechuyos. Shnemar, as it says, v'chote echad yabe tova harbe. One sinner can ruin a lot of good. Yeah.
Isn't this so with the halacha that I asked about? Why would Hashem take off two?
Right, if the quantity doesn't really matter,
right.
Once you say taking off two, that makes the quantity significant.
You take off 1/50 of the.
Yeah, right. That's good. That's a good question. Yeah, that's why I don't understand that at all. Yeah. In Shochlin el Badato shall kill Deos. They're only weighed in the mind of the God of Deos. Now, I never knew here when Rambam says kill Deos. Does he mean Deos in like Hilchos Deos sense, like character traits? Or does he mean Deos in terms of ideas? Because the Rambam does use it in both ways. Yeah? Why?
Because you would need knowledge to weigh sins, not obedience.
Okay, fair enough. V'hu hayodea heach orchin hazachios k'neged avonos. And he knows, there's a riot for you. He knows how to evaluate the zachios and the avonos, against the avonos. Okay, so only God can weigh them, right? Yeah, and that's just something that I also feel like you got to like stop and appreciate that. Like, I feel like people think that Hitler is evil. You don't know. I mean, he's evil, but like you don't know that he's not a tzaddik. And if you think you know, then like you're violating this halacha. Like, no, only God knows. You know. So yeah. So human intuition is completely off because you don't know how to weigh them. Which, by the way, this shows also that whatever framework we're in right now is not the framework of halacha, because in halacha you can rank the severity of averos. I don't know about mitzvos, but of averos.
Well, isn't that only because Hashem said without punishment?
Yeah, right. But this shows that like even two people who do the same avera doesn't mean that their avon is going to be equivalent. Oh, and I should point that out also, by the way, right? And he says this later on, but like avon is not synonymous with avera, and zechus is not synonymous with mitzvah. Yeah.
So then what do you need to count them? Maybe that's not really a question, but like you could count particular averos, but iniquity.
Well, weighing them, right? He doesn't. I mean, he says it's not based on the count.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Kol mi shenichem ala hamitzvos she'asa. Anyone who regrets the mitzvahs that he did, v'taha ala zachios, and is taha on the zachios. I remember in Rav Pesach here many years ago, someone said, "What does taha mean?" And he says, "It's like when you go." That's what he said. But like he gives up on the zachios. I don't know exactly how to translate taha. Amar belibo umahu alti basiyasan. And he says in his heart, what benefit did I get in doing them? What is your next word after asiyasan? Ulai. Okay, so I think there's if I remember correctly, there's a textual discrepancy here. So ulai means ulai lo asiyasan. Maybe I didn't do them. Let me just look at the. Yeah, that's weird, right? Like you're doubting whether you actually did the mitzvah.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
That would make sense, right? Maybe I shouldn't have done them, but so this thing he says. Oh, it doesn't bring down the textual thingy. So there's another gitza that says halavai lo asisi osan. If only I didn't do them, like you're wishing that you didn't do them. You know. Harize ibet es kulin. So then you lose all of them. Ve'in maskirin lo shum zechus b'olam, and they don't mention for him any zechus forever or in the world. Anti-tshuva, yeah. But anti-tshuva is way easier than real tshuva, right? All you have to do is regret, like the charata just gets rid of everything. Whereas actual tshuva, you need way more than the charata, you know?
So it sounds like you have to do more than just the words. Like you have to actually.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it's an inner regret, right? The nechama is how he says it, right? Yeah.
Is that really easier than inner tshuva? Like.
I think so, because actual tshuva requires actually like making sure you don't do the thing again. Yeah. You don't even have to do the avera again, right? You can just regret doing the mitzvahs. Shneimar v'tidkas hatzadik lo tatzilena b'yom rishon. So it says the righteousness of the tzaddik will not save him on the day of his evil. So all of his tzidkas, all of his tzidkas is worthless. Ein zeh ela b'toheh al rishon. This is only talking about someone who's toheh on the first ones. Okay. All right. So then this sentence is this next one is the most confusing one.
What is the first one? Where did the first one come?
The mitzvahs he has already done, like in the past.
Oh, not like the first time he did them.
No, yeah, the early mitzvahs. Okay, Kishem sheshoklin avonos Adam uzechiosov b'shas misaso kach b'chol shana v'shana shoklin avonos kol echad v'echad mibai ha'olam im zechiosav b'yom tov shel Rosh Hashanah. Just like they weigh the avonos and the avonos with the zechios at the time of a person's death, so too each and every year they weigh the avonos of each and every person who comes into the world with his zechios on the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah. Now here's the difficult thing, okay? When was he talking about until now? But then how can he say miyad hu meis, Barisho?
You're right.
Right? That's what you would think, because the way he leads the sentence, it sounds like he was talking about it at the time of a person's death. But then earlier he was saying, like, as soon as you hit that point of rishus, you die immediately.
Yeah.
So he can't be talking about b'shas misa.
For someone says it is, it means he gets cars.
Oh yeah?
So the way he opened up the parak, he was just saying each person has sins and each person has.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like there's any particular time of judgment that we're.
Right. It sounds like just a real-time phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how's Medina big cars also?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you're gonna say cars, yeah. And plain pshas is not cars; it's death, because Rambam doesn't hold the cars as death.
Also, the Medina doesn't tie into the Yom Misa.
Yes, that's also true. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm learning the Rambam, not the Magid Mishnah. Yeah. Okay. So then he says. So now we're talking about Rosh Hashanah. Mi shenimtza tzadik nechtam l'chaim. Someone who's found to be a tzaddik is sealed for life. I think this is the first time we're talking about the sealing thing. Mi shenimtza rasha nechtam l'misa. Someone who's found to be a rasha is sealed for death. Va'benoni tolin lo ad Yom Kippurim. The benoni hangs until Yom Kippurim, or they hang for him until Yom Kippurim. Im asa tשובה nechtam l'chaim. If he did tשובה, he's sealed for life. V'im lav nechtam l'misa, and if not, then he's sealed for death. Yeah.
So according to Olive, what would this mean? If you're Russia, you should die immediately.
Yes, right. Yeah, I mean that's the other dimension of the miyad part, right? Is of the miyad problem. Not only do we not see it, and it seems like unrealistic, but like if according to the Aleph, if let's say you're judged on Rosh Hashanah and found to be a Rasha, so you should die immediately, according to Aleph. But now this is saying you hang. Oh no, right? Sorry, no, you are nechtam l'misa. Sorry, so what was your question?
Well, I'm saying, does that just mean you die immediately, or what else does it mean?
For the Benoni?
It sounds like it's it, that's all I'm looking at.
Yeah.
No,
The nechtam versus the miyad hu meis.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I don't know if it's right time to ask this question necessarily, but like, kind of like, why do we need to know any of this?
Yes, right.
/ isn't this kind of predicating that we have some kind of knowledge of Hashem's actions?
Yeah. That's a good question because the implication is that this is somehow necessary for the mitzvah of vidui, which is the mitzvah in this section, But it's metaphysics, like it's about how God judges us, and like, does this really make any difference? Yeah, and especially when you throw in that the only God can weigh this.
Right.
So then, practically speaking, you can't keep score at home even.
But also, this all must be derech mashal, because you can't know positively that this is the way that Hashem, like Hashem's judgment must be different than the way that we judge. But this seems like a human kind of way to like weigh things.
I don't know. I mean, he says though that only God can weigh this. Like he's acknowledging that this is davka not the way that human beings judge things.
Right, but by saying that he means everything else in the prayer is kind of like it's not the true reality of how people are judged exactly.
I mean, I agree with you, but I don't see exactly where you're getting that from here.
Not from here, just from the fact that we can't understand things about God like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying that things here are wrong.
Right. No, I understand that, but I'm saying like, what if God tells us?
Right.
Yeah.
But like, if we wanted to understand how God knows like about our actions.
Yeah.
Well, we run into like contradictions when we try to understand that, or like we don't really understand God's knowledge. This seems tied directly into God's knowledge.
I don't think so. I think this is tied to God's action, and the part that we're saying we don't know is God's knowledge, right? That the weighing is dependent on God's knowledge, but what he does with it is his actions, and like that we can know. Yeah. Okay, so then he goes through, we'll read this part really fast because I feel like this is done in every shir, right? So this is the Tkiyas Shofar, right? So even though Tkiyas Shofar on Rosh Hashanah is a scriptural decree, then there's an allusion in it as if to say, wake up, you sleepers from your sleep, wake up, you deep sleepers from your deep sleep, analyze your actions, return to Tשוba, remember your Creator. These are the people who forget reality in the vanities of the times, and they spend their entire year immersed in nothingness and emptiness that doesn't help and doesn't save. Look into your souls, improve your ways and your actions, and each one of you abandon your evil way and your thought that's not good. Therefore, every person needs to see himself the entire year. That's another weird thing, right?
Yeah.
The entire year, not just on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, as if he's half exonerated and half liable. And likewise, the entire world. Country? Not the country. Half exonerated and half liable. If he did one sin, if he does one sin, he tips himself and the entire world to the side of liability and causes for them destruction. If he did one mitzvah, if he did one mitzvah, he tips himself and the entire world to the side of Zechus, and he causes for them salvation and saving. Zehu shenemar. This is what it means when it says the tzaddik yisod olam. The tzaddik is the foundation of the world. Zeh shetzidek atzmo. So tzaddik is not someone who is righteous; it's someone who righteousified himself, someone who made himself righteous. He es kol olam kula v'hitila. He tipped the entire world and saved it. Because of this concept, nahagu, this concept that applies all year round. Nahagu kol beis Yisrael laharbos b'tzedakah v'masim tovim v'lasuk b'mitzvos mirosh Hashanah ad Yom Kippurim. The entire house of Israel is accustomed to increase their tzedakah and their good actions and to be involved in mitzvos from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippurim. Yeser mikol Yom Hashanah, more than the rest of the year. V'nahagu kulam lakum b'layla b'asar yom elu, and they're all accustomed to get up at night during these 10 days. Ulis palu b'bate kinesios v'divrei tachanunim v'divrei kivushim ad she'yor hayom, and to daven in the shuls in words of supplication and submissiveness until daybreak. Yeah.
Shouldn't we do mitzvahs also before Rosh Hashanah?
Right, because that's when we're going to be judged. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. That's true. And also, I forgot to mention this other question here. I remember Rapesach pointing this out in right before Daled, about the Beinoni being Toleh. He says, "Im asa tshuva nechtam l'chaim." v'im lav nechtam lemisa. So it's weird he puts it in terms of tshuva, because what you should say, if he does a mitzvah, then he's nechtam l'chaim. If he does an aver, or if he gets a zechus, or if he gets an avon, but it's all if he does tshuva or not. So it's like different criteria. What were you gonna say, Isaiah?
He says that the person should view himself as he's half and half.
Yeah.
And also that the became olam. Does it mean the person should view the whole world, or that the whole world should view itself?
I think the person should view the whole world.
Because then later on he says like a person could tip the whole.
Yeah,
world.
yeah. I think that's why. Yeah. Yeah.
I just question the lashon. I guess in that paragraph that Zechus mentioned, he switches from Sadik and Rasha and Avon and Zechus to Zakai, Chayav, Chetz, and Mitzvah.
Yeah. Right. So that sounds like it's in the judgment mashal, right?
This one's in the judgment.
This one's in the judgment mashal, right? Your verdict, right? Those are verdict terms.
The first one wasn't a mashal?
First one was a different mashal in terms of the status of the person or the zechus that they have, right? But he wasn't expressing the judgment.
It's kind of.
I mean, it's a good question how to reconcile this with the nechtam l'chaim and nechtam l'misa. Like that. That's different than zakai and chayav.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now he's saying you could instantly change the weight.
Yeah.
This doesn't really seem to fit into the rest of the pair, because the rest of the time he's talking about in what what is the mechanism going on when a person is judged.
Right.
And now he's giving people 3 days to listen to the shofar, the rest of the year you're
Yeah.
Hevel.
Yeah. How does this fit in? Yeah. Okay, and then we have the one you were asking about. So at a time when they weigh a person's avonos with the zechus, which I guess is at death and Rosh Hashanah, they don't calculate for him the first avon that he sinned with, or the second. But from the third and on. If from the third and on is more than his zechus, if those avonos are more than his zechus, osan shnei ha-avonos mitztarfin v'dayin osan as a goal. Then they add the 2, right? And they judge everything. But if it's balanced without those 2, ma'avirin kol avonosav rishon. So then all of his avonos are removed one at a time. Lefi shehashlishi nechshav rishon, because the third one is counted as the first one. Shekvar nimchlu hashnayim, because the first 2 have already been forgiven. V'chein harvi harihu rishon, then the fourth is the first. Shekvar nimchlu hashlishi v'chein ad sofan. Same thing for the rest of them. I don't get it. Yeah.
This might be a stretch, but is it possible to say that he's talking about 3 avonos in the same exact type of sin?
I don't know. It sounds like all of them, though, right? Because isn't he saying when he's talking about the evaluation, if they're found to be connected to zechuyos, that sounds like in terms of the total calculation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When he said techilas avon shechat.
Yeah, techila does sound like the first instance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Was looking through the Gemaras that were related to this, it struck me for some reason. I don't remember the source of this, but that it seemed to be that Hashem didn't count a sin against someone the first time or the second time that they did it, but then the third time they were counted as.
Like that.
Kind of
Yeah.
Maybe there's some idea that it's not really about when we're deciding if someone is a Rosh or a Benoni or a Tzaddik, then it's not really the instance of sin, but whether it defines the person.
Yeah, that definitely lends itself to something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the weird thing was, if once they get defined as a Russian, so then they get tacked back on. That didn't.
Yeah. Those 2 are hanging in the balance. Yeah. Right.
Oh, I had an idea about it, but.
Yeah, let's hold off on that till we just get the whole data. Then I think we only have one more. So when is this talking about? Biyachid. Shnemar hein kol ela yifalkel pa'amayim shalosh im gaver. Oh, that's a pasuk in Yov. Yeah, behold, all of these God will do or will act twice or 3 times with a person. Yeah, that's totally out of context. Aval tzibor, but the congregation tolin lahen avon rishon usheni ushlishi. So then you got a bonus. First, second, and third are they hang in the balance. Al shlosha shneimar al shlosha pishay Yisrael val arba lo ashivenu. On 3 are the sins of Israel. On 4, I will not return. I don't know what the context is. So then God counts from the 4th and on, but seemingly in the same manner.
What do you mean, sins of the people? Like, they do as a group?
So it's interesting to use this Sibor here because it's not Medina.
Mm-hmm.
Medina was what he said before. Yeah.
On the Eov topic, I thought Rashi related after this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense because Rashi learns that Eov, the whole scenario of Eov happens on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. All right, so I only have one thing to contribute to this.
Yeah.
And I saw this a long time ago, and then and I've yearned to use this to work out everything, but I haven't succeeded. And I haven't tried it in a couple of years. So I'll give you the one piece and like make of it what you will. Okay, so this comes down to the definition of Zechus and Avonos. Okay, if you want to get, I'll get it online. If you want to get a פירוש המשניות in Nezikin for yourselves, I'm gonna try to find it online. Let's see, it would. Yeah, in Chelek. Oh no, in Shemona Perakim. Actually, you know what? Sorry, folks at Zoom. I'm going to use the good translation. I don't know if it's actually. I'm going to see if I have access to the good translation online. Hold on. We'll have to compare. What was that? Seder in Nezikin. We don't hold by. Hey, Robbie.
Hello, Matthew. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Merkava might have.
Merkava? I know. Actually, I don't. I haven't used that. I should check that out. I've heard people talk about it.
Nice program.
Let me just check out Bar Ilan first. Shmona Perakim. They keep it. I think they have this in a separate section. How? It is in. Uh-oh, that sounded bad. Hopefully God only counts the 3rd time you do that. I think it's in the 2nd parak. Why can I not find? I mean, it's the intro to Avos, but why is it not listed in the Mishnayos? Maybe they list it in some other.
What are you on?
Hold on just a second. Mefarshei Mishnah. Oh, I know why, because I wasn't looking in the right place. You know, I'm looking on Bar Ilan, where it's alphabetized.
Oh.
So yeah, they have it as a separate entry. Shemona Perakim the Rambam. Okay, there we go. So I think it's the 2nd parak. Yaakov, you got it there?
Yeah.
2nd parak. Can you just tell me what the first words are? Okay, good. All right, so I got the right translation. Okay. So he says, I think this is the right parak. Wait, let me just actually look at one. Maybe that's not the right parak. Maybe it's the 3rd parak. What's the 3rd parak?
The 3rd parak is Amru Akadmonim.
Yeah, hold on. I thought it was the 2nd parak. Just give me 1 second here. Yeah, there we go. It's the 2nd parak. Okay, good. Okay, so he says like this. Yeah. So he says, does yours have a title for the 2nd parak?
Yeah.
B'miri kochos hanefesh.
Yep.
Uvidias hachelek asher bo o lo yimatzu hamalos hapchisuyos. So in what was it?
What's the last one?
Pchisuyos.
It's not gross.
Oh, so maybe this is a different translation. Whatever. You'll tell me if there's anything drastically different. So he says, "Da, you should know. Ki hamiri v'hamashmas hatorim omnam yimatzu l'shnei chalakim mechalkei nefesh." So rebellion and obedience in Torah are found in 2 components of the soul. We don't need to go through this right now. Hold on. Maybe I should, just in the interest of time, summarize this. Hold on just a second here. All right, skip down. Okay, so let me just summarize this. Or let's skip down. Okay, I mean, really, if we want to be thorough, you would read through the whole chapter. Is there a paragraph that you have that starts with Amnam Hamalos Harihain Shnei Minim? Or something? Yeah. In the second paragraph, yeah, there's two types of malos, two types of virtues.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are two types of like virtues.
It's almost interesting sugim.
Sugim? Okay. Yeah. So I have malos midos and malos sichlios. So there are two types of virtues. There's ethical virtues and intellectual virtues. Ukenegdan shnei mini hapchisuyos, and corresponding to them are two types of vices, or like bad, opposites of virtues. Amnam hamalos hasichlios. Okay, so the virtues of the intellect. Harihen yimatu lechelek hasichli. So they are found in the intellectual component of the soul. Mehen hachachma. So chachma is intellectual virtue. V'hi yedias hasibos harachokos v'akrovos. This is knowledge of the causes, the far and the near. Achar yedias mitzios hadavar asher yichakru sibosav. After you know the existence of the thing that you're investigating its causes of. V'aseichel, okay, and intellect, mimenu haseichel ha'iyuni, and included in it is the theoretical intellect. Hu asher yusag lanu b'teva. This is what we apprehend by nature. Rotzoni lomar hamuskalos rishonos. That's first principles, meaning those ideas that are like programmed into your mind. Umimenu seichel nikne, and also acquired intellect. We don't really need to know these things. We're just getting an overview here. The aim ze mekomo. Oh, that's what he said. This is not his place. Okay, so he's not going to talk about it either. All right. Umihena hacharifus v'tuv havana. So sharpness. Do you have charifus, or is it a different word? Zechus. I like Zechus better. Clarity. And tuv ha'havana, and good understanding. V'hu tov tfisas hadavar b'mehirus b'lo, meaning the ability to grasp something quickly, in no time. Ozman katamod, or in very small time. U'b'chisuyos ze'akoch hefech elu oshek negdan. And the vices are the opposite of these things, or they correspond to them. Okay, so those are intellectual virtues. Okay, so good intellectual qualities. V'amnam ma'alos hamidos. But the malos in ethics, harihin yimatu l'chelik hamisor levado. So they are found in the part of the soul that has the emotions. L'chelik hamargish b'zeh ha'inyan eno ela shamash l'chelik hamisorer. And the sensory faculty is only a servant to the emotional faculty. Malas zeh chelik rabos ma'od, and there are many virtues in this chelik. Kizihirus, v'ha'ayin yafeh, v'ha'tzedek, v'ha'saflanus, v'ha'nava, v'ha'istapkus, v'ha'gvura, v'ha'ne'emanus, v'ha'zlasan. So, cautiousness, generosity, righteousness, patience, humility, contentedness, strength, trustworthiness. And the vices in these things are either excess or deficiency. Okay. Oh no. No. Is the source somewhere else? See, it's been so long since I revisited this theory. No, I mean, this is all necessary. But there's a line that I'm looking for, and it doesn't say the line. Hold on. Yeah. Let me just find it really quickly. Hold on. Yeah, it's been years since I've revisited this theory. That's why. Hold on. Avon knows. Oh no. Oh, I know where it is. It's in Shmona Prakim, so you're in the right place. I think it's the 8th parak. Yeah, but we did need to go through this first. It wasn't in vain. And I just need to find this. Mishnah, Shmona Prakim, Hakdama. Wait, 8th. Shmona Prakim, 8th parak. It's either the 8th or the 7th. Hold on. Oh, this is a long one.
Yep. You know the line sounds like? I can have a look for it.
Sorry, it's the seventh one. It's the seventh parak. Okay, here we go. Yeah. And I think it's at the beginning. Yeah, it's at the beginning. First two paragraphs. Okay. Harbe yimatzu b'midrashos v'haggados. You will find in the midrashim and the haggados, v'yesh mizeh b'talmud, and there's some in the Talmud. Kimin hanavim mish yireh es Hashem achorei mechitos rabos. That some Nevi'im saw Hashem from behind many. Do you have mechitos or different words? Masachim, yeah. So masachim are like veils. I like the veils better than mechitos. So there are those who saw Hashem from behind many veils. And there's some who saw him through few veils. According to the quality or the level of their closeness to Hashem. And their level of nevuah. To this extent where they said, Shemoshe Rabbeinu ra'as Hashem me'achori mechitza achas miluteshes. Yours, I bet, says something different than miluteshes. Bahir? Yeah, Bahir. Yeah, yours is so much better. Moshe Rabbeinu saw Hashem through literally a brilliant veil. Ritzoni Lomar, meaning shkufa. I think yours says something like shakuf, yeah. So transparent, I think is what it means. V'hu amram, he's talking about baspaklaria hami'ira inayim. So he saw Hashem through the transparent veil. Uspaklaria shem hamare hasuya mi geshem shakuf gavish ukizukukis kumotion navar b'sof kelim. So it's something made out of glass. Okay? All right. V'hakavana b'zayin. Here's the main point. Mash omer lach. V'hu she'anu kvar bi'anu b'perak hasheni. So we already learned in the second parak, ki hamalos, that the virtues, mehen malos sichlus, mehen malos midos. Some of them are intellectual virtues and some of them are ethical virtues. And so too with the vices, mehen pechisuyos sichlios. Some of them are intellectual vices, kesichlus, tipshus, like foolishness and idiocy, koshi havana, and difficulty of understanding. Mehen pechisuyos midos. Some of them are vices of ethics, ethical vices. Karov hataiva, v'hagaiva, v'hakas, v'hakina, v'ha'azus, v'ahavas ha'mamon, u'mishon domen lehen, like desire and arrogance and anger and jealousy and brazenness and love of money and other things like that. V'hin rabas me'od. Ukvar zechanu halchok b'yediasan b'perak harvi, ve'elu ha'pechisuyos bichlalan, hein ha'machitos ha'mavdilos bein ha'adam u'bein Hashem yisala. These vices are the veils that separate between man and God. Amar Hanavi, and the Navi says, Mavarze, ki im avonosechem hayu mavdilim beinechem uvein elokechem. That your avonos separate between you and your God. Yomar, ki chata'enu v'hein elo haraos. Does yours say chata'enu? Avonosenu, see. Avonosenu is like the word that the Navi uses. I don't know why this translation changes it. Our avonos, Vein elo haraos. These are these bad things. Kamosha zacharnu hena mechitos hamavdilos beinenu veino yisala. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so the if you look into the Sefer, I'm not going to bring this up now, but if you look into the Sefer Hasharashim of the Radak, who tried to chart all the Sharashim and their grammatical structures and stuff. So he says that the shoresh of Avon is ayin vav tav, which means distortion, okay, or perversion. And the shoresh of Zechus is Zayin Chaf He or Zayin Chaf Chaf, like Zechuchis, which means clarity or freedom from impurity. Okay. So what my one contribution to Perek Gimel of the Rambam is that when he says every person has zechuyos and avonos, what it means is they have intellectual and midos virtues or vices that block their accurate perception of God. Okay? And the person has these things, and the Medina has these things, and the Olam has these things. Okay, and if you want examples of the Medina having these things, so like if you look at, let's say like America, right? So one thing that America has that is a zechus is a tremendous recognition of like the importance of choice, of like liberty. That's something that is not present in North Korea. Okay, right? Or let's say the idea that the idea, or let's say like if you look at the Jewish people, so valuing learning, that's an intellectual amida, or valuing tzedakah, that's like a amida of the ethical amida, and then with vices, then there are, let's say like, well, I mean, look, some things are vices in one way and virtues in another way. It's like American individualism. That is a virtue in the sense that like taking charge of your own life, but it's also a vice in the sense that it lends itself to certain egotism, whereas let's say like in certain Eastern societies, the willingness to do what's good for the society is both a virtue and a vice, but the point is that there are like virtues and vices that are in cultures, that's the Medina level. And then in terms of the world, that's another thing, and like, when he says the world, I assume, he said it himself, it's like the majority, like I think there was a point at which, I don't know exactly what, historically what point this is, but let's say like the intellectual virtue of recognizing that the world operates based on cause and effect, like scientific cause and effect. There was a time when the world did not have that virtue. It was just Yechidim. And then like, I don't know, post-Renaissance, scientific revolution or whatever, now that's something that the majority of the world has, that there's a recognition. Or let's say the idea of like, that of the Tselem Elokim, of fundamental human equality, we're getting there, like the world is getting there, but so the world, humanity can have like these Zechus and Avonos also, okay? So I think that's what he means by every person has Zechus and Avonos. And then I think in terms of the only God can evaluate them, then that also makes sense, because by definition, if these are the things that are, if Avonos are the things that are obscuring your view of reality, and Zechus are the things that are like, the areas where you have a clarity of reality, either intellectually or psychologically, so you can't evaluate it by definition, because your perception is not absolute. You're looking through the veils. So only God can look at a particular Zechus or Avon that you have and say how much that affects your entire soul or your entire perception of reality. And this is also the I think this sheds light on the phenomenon of doing one mitzvah or doing one avera and tipping yourself, even though he doesn't use a Zechus and Avon there, right?
No.
Yeah, right. But it seems to be in that context, in the sense of like, of the judgment, of like, what lashon does he use? Because he's still talking about like causing yourself in the world destruction, So if we assume that, and it's in the parak, but if we assume that it's in the same parak, so then that's another thing also, is like when you do one mitzvah, mitzvahs bring you zechuyos in clarity, in the sense of either instilling intellectual virtues or midos virtues, or removing bad ones, and chatayim do the opposite. And I think that's when he says that you could do like one thing and it could tip yourself in the world. I think a person cannot assess the amount of clarity that they would get from one particular Maaseh HaMitzvah, like what that's going to do to their entire worldview or the way that they relate to reality. And same thing with an avera, like Isaac, you were giving me an example of like having one conversation with someone, and like you could have like one conversation or do one act of tzedakah or do one, like, one thing, one mitzvah that leads to this chain reaction of like, giving you this tremendous clarity in terms of your whole orientation towards reality. It can have like a world tipping or a self tipping like effect. Yeah. Now so those are the things I know for sure. So now the question is, does this help us with all the other questions that we said, of like the miyad hu meis berisho, or the regretting? Well, the regretting way, I think this also explains that. Right? If you regret the mitzvahs that you did, that by definition is like a backsliding in terms of your, like what you're considering, like let's say for example, like a person regrets, let's say a person goes off the derech and they regret spending all the years that they spent in yeshiva, that itself, like the regret itself, like ipso facto means that what was in reality a zechus, like a clarity, they're now viewing as a distortion. That itself is like a distortion. It's like they lose all that immediately,
Maybe it helps to maybe explain the 3 minutes.
Okay, please do. Go ahead.
I've been sitting here for like 10 minutes trying to think of how. But
yeah.
Like the first couple times a person does a chait, you could say it's not. Maybe it's something that they see why a person would want to do it, but it's not necessarily like an affect of their soul that like they like are a person who like has this vice or this.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't. The problem that I'm having is like, well, why did they do it the first time? Like, it doesn't that show that it's
right. So I think that fits in. So if we go with the fact that it's like the first time you commit that particular Avon, right, or that Avera, right? Even though he says Tchilas Avon, but like, I think he means the action. So there is a reality of like being overpowered by your emotions,
right?
Getting caught up in the moment, or like, not being able to resist the temptation. So like, you could chalk it up to that. The first 2 times, but then the third time, then that shows that like there has been a fundamental change in you, and therefore, in retrospect, those 2 are contributed to that Avon, and therefore it counts in that sense.
Really, once it actually was part of an aspect of your soul when it turns out that
so
changed. This
is the question, right? The question is, when we say that after you do the third one, the first 2 count, is it like a Gilui Milsa about the first 2, or do the first 2 become that because they led to it? Like that's how I'm inclined to view it. Yeah, right? Because like, and I think that fits in with the Mitzarfin thing, right? Doesn't it seem Mitzarfin? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? So like if you, let's use an example, right? Like let's say like you steal something, right? Because you really wanted it, and then like the second time, like you were gonna pay for it, but like you didn't have it, like you really need it, so you steal. And then like the third time, so now you have become someone who doesn't value other people's property, and like shali and shalach shali, and like whatever your mentality is. So like those first 2 got you there. If you hadn't done those first 2, you wouldn't have suddenly like been at that point. So those first 2 are mitzaref in that sense to that distortion that you've now entrenched in yourself by that third action.
It's like the morning in Erevin. It's not Erevin. About Shemitah. It says that like the way the pasuk interprets the whole where is it? Yeah, it's towards the end of it. It describes a whole bunch of things having to do with like fields.
Yeah.
Or like when you sell your fields, like sell your kalim, things like that. And interprets it as like if you violate Shemitah, then you're going to come to sell your kalim, and then you come to because you have money and whatever. But it's described. It says that the language of the pasuk is at first it says if you do it, and then I don't know if it says if you repeat it, or but then it shifts to when. It says why is it shift to that? It's because once you're repeating it, then it becomes like much repeating.
Right. Yeah. Now don't ask me about the tzipor thing. Why is like the first 3 don't count and the 4th one does?
Oh yeah.
I have no clue about that.
Nice.
Yeah. Right. What even is that? Yeah. And I also don't know what this has to do with the pasuk in Eov, because that's talking about a person being saved from illness in context.
What's this whole I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't even know. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to figure out here.
Yeah.
But this was when I first found that in the Rambam, I was like, it gave me hope for like some way to interpret all this stuff, But I think the most pressing question is, what are these definitions of tzaddik in Russia?
Right.
You know, so like I'm inclined to say something as follows, and this is not a final formulation, but like, you know, is a person predominantly defined by like the areas in which they are clear in reality and like moving away from the distortions, or are they predominantly defined by their distortions?
I have an alternate.
Go ahead, please.
If a person is like a Russia, maybe their distortions are such that they will get worse. And if a person is a tzaddik, maybe their distortions are such that their clarity is such that they will tend towards more clarity.
Yeah, I hear that possibility also.
Like the Russia is someone who is so distorted now that they're kind of like their distortions are going to compound.
Yeah, I mean that fits in with the whole thing of nechtam l'chaim and nechtam l'misa, right? I mean, like based on what your status is of Zechus and Avonos, you're sealed for death or sealed for life.
Right. It seems like a logical way to weigh whether the Avonos are more or the Zechus.
Yeah. Sarich iyun. Yeah. So this is the difficulty. I mean, we have what to work on the search for Tשובה. You know, let's just distract ourselves from actual Tשוva and just talk about God's judgment. No, but seriously, this answers the question though, right? Of like, you can see how if you understand what this mashal is, then this can actually frame the way that you relate to the effects of the averos and mitzvos you do. You know.
Maybe Benoni makes more sense if you explain it like that, because then Benoni isn't like you have a pile of mitzvos that are exactly equal and averos that are equal on both sides, but like this person isn't going to tend towards more distortion or less distortion. Rather, they are like gonna stay how they are unless they.
So the weird thing, which we didn't ask, is how come Beinonim don't make it past Yom Kippur? Right. That's the weird thing.
Maybe that like I don't know, just like maybe that like time is supposed to trigger them towards a step forward.
Yeah, I can see it.
That's kind of
right. I mean, yeah, I know it's like this. Is like if it's kind of like a person who's in doubt about things can live with the doubt, but then if they're put into a situation where they're forced to define themselves in one way or another, to like act, so then you can't like be in doubt about that. Like, you know, like what are you gonna choose? So like when the Yom HaDin comes, and then you got the Chasimas HaDin on Yom Kippurim, either you did tshuva or you don't. I mean, I don't know why it's tshuva, not mitzvahs, but like either you did tshuva and you didn't. So if you don't do tshuva, then you're nechtam l'misa. Like that shows that you're not a Benoni. That shows that you're a Rasha.
Well, isn't it maybe tshuva, not mitzvahs, because it's changing the tendencies or the distortions?
That could be. That makes sense, right? Because a mitzvah is not necessarily. Yeah, that's true. Tough Perek.
Does that only apply to Jew then?
I think it applies to everyone.
I mean,
because everyone's judged on Rosh Hashanah, right?
right. They don't have any forced decision on Kippur though, because they don't have a special.
That's true. Yeah. That part wouldn't work for the Yom Kippur thing, right? Yeah. All right, we have what to think about. Yep. Okay, guys.
It wasn't so much about a Q&A, but
Yeah, no, it ended up being a topic in Jewish philosophy, as the title of the shir says. Yeah. All right, have a good Rosh Hashanah. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Like,